Hey everybody, welcome back to the Grognards Corner, and this is the original Grognard himself, Devin, and I am taking a look at Berlin 1945 by Taktyka and Strategy, a little game company out of Poland I discovered about a year ago. And if anybody who has ever listened to the podcast or seen previous videos know that I tend to be a rather huge fanboy from these guys. I actually have really enjoyed a lot of what Waj has put out, and I own several of his games and plan on ordering more. Now, I went over Berlin 45 a couple months ago when I first got it, did kind of an unboxing video on it, and kind of want to get in a little bit deeper into it, kind of want to touch on the good, the bad, and the ugly of it from the setup perspective and the actual gameplay perspective. So here we are. We're going to go ahead and jump right into this. And let me go ahead and move the box off and get into it. First of all, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the counters. And hopefully this will zoom in and be bright enough. These are the German reserves. Now, the counters are not that bad. I mean, the counters are 5/8 inch counters, and they do have some nice graphics on them. The infantry, you know, you got the different poses with the infantry and such on. And let's see if I can zoom in. We may not be able to get too close to get a good look at it. And you got your leader counters, which have got some, we've got the historical, you know, attempts to get the actual historical photos on them, the armor. The only thing, couple things that that personally aren't a big deal. One thing that isn't a big deal to me, the other one that a lot of other people may find a bit annoying. For one thing, the counters are very, very thin. These are very thin counters. These are not your Avalon Hill thickness counters. These are not most Western game style company counters. Honestly, not a big deal to me. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind the thin counters. But there are people out there that do, so just be advised, this is kind of the standard thickness for all S&T games. Now, the one thing about the counters that do kind of bug me, I wish the graphics were a little bit bigger. I mean, he's got these beautiful graphics on them. Let's go ahead and take a look at some Soviets as well. He's got some beautiful graphics on them, but they're so tiny. You can't really see them. Let's go ahead and break up a stack a little bit. So, you know, you got all these wonderful graphics on them, but it's hard to see them. And the other thing, the thing that really, really does kind of bug me, and this is more from a perspective of being an old man and failing eyesight, is that the numbers are so tiny. The font on the numbers are so tiny. It's nice that he definitely does have the different colored backing on them, so it does make them a bit easier to read, but I got to strain myself if I want to take a look at the counters. And you know, getting to be in my old age, it's hard to see those small numbers sometimes. So, honestly, those are about the only two issues that people could mention or complain about the counters. Let's go ahead and take a look at the map. The map is just absolutely freaking gorgeous. I've said this time and time again. I love whoever the artist he's got working for him. Waj, keep that guy hired. You've got some absolutely beautiful, beautiful maps. Here we have Berlin here with one of the counters that kind of got bumped off a little bit with the flak towers. But just absolutely beautiful, beautiful graphics. The only complaint that some people might take away from it is the hex lines are a little light. They're not very bold. They're a little bit tough to see sometimes, especially when you get into the dark woods areas or basically any type of woods. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to see the hex borders. But to me, not that big of a game breaker, not that big of a deal. And so let's go ahead and take a look here at the set. Now, the Germans are scattered all up and down the Oder River. You got a couple blown bridges there that are on their side of the river. Of course, that's to try to slow the Soviets down. And that's pretty much the German forces. There, if you'll take a look, there is not much between the front line and Berlin itself. So initial reaction is that the Germans are going to get the shit kicked out of them and need to play a very fighting withdrawal defensive type battle. I don't know how that's going to translate in gameplay. So that's why I wanted to get this on the table, why I wanted to take a look at it, see exactly how it was going to work, because I'm really interested to see how this is going to work. The Soviets, now these are not the actual Soviet setup positions. I've just got them broken down into the areas where the different army groups set up. I need to go over the rules one more time just to make sure I've got exactly how movement and combat work before I actually set the Soviets up. Now, the Germans are set up by hex. The Soviets are set up by army group, and they're delineated by, all right, for example, here we have, I believe that's the 69th. They have to set up somewhere between those yellow lines, and I believe that's the 1st Ukrainian Front. Here we have the 33rd Army Group. They have pretty much this entire southern sector here. Those yellow lines is basically where their delineation is. And so, yeah, I just need to look over exactly how movement and combat works before I set it up. Couple of issues with the setup. The rules could have used a little bit more proofing and editing. Some of the lines got a little, and some of the characters got a little bit jumbled. So you have, say, a unit like the 1/408 artillery is supposed to set up on this hex, but for some reason it just reads, on one line 08 arty in hex such and such, and the 1/40 was on the line above. A couple, 3 times that occurred. Not that big a deal in my opinion. Sometimes it didn't really identify the artillery. A lot of the headquarters units had support artillery that was stacked with it. It didn't really define that too well. Fortunately, I was able to figure it out. Sometimes in the English rules for the setup, they will have, like instead of just unit types, they have just, anti-tank. And if we'll take a look, like this unit right here is set up as an anti-tank. Well, in the English rules, it's set up as anti-tank, but on the counter, it's P-tank, which, Polish is anti-tank. So if you don't know the Polish language, that may confuse you a little bit. I was able to figure out because, admittedly, since I started working with the company and playing their games, my knowledge of Polish has increased since it was last year. Other than that, there was no real problem with setup. A couple things with the scenario notes and rules. The Soviets are able to launch artillery barrages on the 16th and 17th, but they don't say how strong those artillery barrages are. I'm going to have to touch bases with Waj on find exactly what that is. Other than that, the English rules are pretty crisp, pretty tight. I really do like how they're laid out. They're probably one of the more polished rule sets that he's translated from Polish into English. Overall, I'm expecting this to be a very interesting gameplay experience. I really am looking forward to it because I've been wanting to get this on the table for a long time. And we will be back when I actually get some gameplay in to get some further thoughts on it. I have no idea. Hopefully it won't take me a couple, 3 days. We'll see. Everybody who's listened to me or watched me in the past knows I am not a clever man, and I tend to be a bit slow on things sometimes. But there we go. That's the initial thoughts, initial reactions to Berlin 1945 from Tactics and Strategy. And stay tuned for part 2 when we take a look at actual game mechanics. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you later.